In today's video, we're going to show you how to flush your brake fluid on a Yamaha R1. This model is a 2001 and is actually in really good shape. So it's going to be pretty easy to work on. Everything's pretty clean. So we are going to need some brake fluid, some PB blaster, we use that. And we have, of course, our rag to cover up where the nipple will be so we don't get any brake fluid on the rims. We don't possibly want to mess up any of the surface area that it may contact. We have our 8mm socket and a little wrench. So let's get started. I do suggest, if you have a older bike, since this bike is currently 22 years old, did spray some PB blaster on the nipple right here of the caliper, and we let this sit overnight. We actually sprayed it a couple times, waited like an hour, sprayed it again, just to get it really in there, because these things can and will get seized over time and stuck. So this will help loosen it up. And of course, we have our blader tool here. So let's go start on the rear one first. Get your Phillips head screwdriver, get this all the way loose, and then we'll move this to the other side so we have better access for pouring the brake fluid. Next, take off your cap. Start to take out all this stuff right here. Just going to use a rag to actually get all this out. You could use the tool to suck it out, but I'm just going to do this like that. This right here, we have it. Now we will fill this up with some clean fluid. And we will put the cap back on so that it doesn't get all over the place. First, we are going to break the seal on this bleeder valve. Sometimes it's good just to tighten it to the right just a little bit before, and then you can turn it left, crack it. Since I cracked it, I will just make it snug since that's all set. And be careful, because like I said, sometimes these things will break. I've tried taking this off a caliper before and it boom, just broke it right off. So anyway, we'll get our 8mm wrench on here. Next, we will get part of the bleeder tool hose onto the nipple, and make sure it's a pretty decent tight fit, just so it doesn't spill all over the place and you don't want air getting out. We are hooking up our tool. I will start to make pressure on here. Once it gets to around, I like to do around 20. Once it's at like 20, I'll crack the bleeder valve and start sucking out some of the old fluid. We will continue to do this process until we see clear fluid, then we know we have successfully flushed the rear brake line. when you're using this thing, I don't let it get all the way down with the pressure. I let it get pretty close and I'll pump it back up. This way I know that we haven't got any air into the system. Also, when you are doing this, make sure that your master cylinder does not get empty. If you're doing it by yourself, you need to maybe just do a little bit of bleeding and then check the level, and you have to continuously do that. If you have a friend that could hold on to it and just pour fluid as it's going down, perfect scenario. But since we're doing it by yourself, like I said, we did 2 of those, and then we'll check the fluid. And we still have a decent amount, so we'll get back to it. All right, so we went through about 3 of the master cylinders worth of fluid. Obviously, it will depend on how long the fluid's been sitting to flush everything out, but as you can see, this is the brake fluid, and I wouldn't say it's horrible. It's not great. It's definitely old and been used, so glad that we swapped it out. We made sure that this was back nice and tight. We will put the little cover back on here. I have it over there. Next, we started to refill a master cylinder. We put the little sponge part back in there, and the cap is on tightly. Next, we'll put this back over here and button her up. Cap is back on. This is back where it's supposed to be. Now we will start pressing down the brakes, and sometimes it might be a little bit soft. If not, after you just keep pumping it up a couple times, it will get nice and stiff again since we don't have any air bubbles in there. So this side is all set to go. It feels actually really good. We are clean on that. Let's start heading over to the front calipers. Take off the bolt right here, and then you can take off your cap. Be careful not to lose this metal bracket and the small screw that holds it in place. Before you take off the cap, put some type of rag over here to definitely cover up your tachometer and any other parts of the bike, because you do not want to get the brake fluid on it. After the cap is off, take out the sponge and the diaphragm, like so. Put this in a safe place so it doesn't end up getting brake fluid on anything. As you can see, the brake fluid is pretty dirty, so we're going to use a tool and suck out this dirty brake fluid. We got the old fluid out. I'm just going to take a clean paper towel, just wipe the inside of here, then we will refill it with the fresh brake fluid. All right, so we got that all capped off. Next, we'll go back down to the caliper, use our 8mm wrench. We'll tighten it a tiny bit first, then crack it. Once that's loose, snug it back up. We'll get our 8mm wrench, put this on here, and start the bleeding process again, just like we did with the rear. So after going through about one full master cylinder, maybe 1.5, we got the fluid to actually be nice and clear now. So we know that we got fresh fluid through there. We tightened our bleeder back up. We put the cap back on. We're all set on this side. We'll head over to the other and start doing that.
Close your eyes.
We tightened up our bleeder. We got the cover back on. As you can see, the fluid is nice and clear, so we got this one set. And that's basically it. Now, what you got to do is you got to go back up to your master cylinder, make sure that it's probably filled about halfway, put the cover back on, and check the level to make sure it's in between the high and the low mark. As you can see, we are right in the middle on our level for the brake fluid. I'm going to put just a smudge bit more. Not too much, just a tiny bit more, and then we'll put the cap back on. We'll get our bracket and we'll put our screw back to secure it in place. Cap is back on. We have our bolt nice and tight. Now we will operate the brake lever a bunch of times just to make sure it's functioning and it's nice and good. And then we'll take it for a quick little ride down the street going very slow just to make sure that the brakes are fully functional. And that's about it. You can take off this cover. This way, like I said, none of our stuff got any brake fluid on it, and it looks great. So that's basically it, guys. Pretty simple process. Obviously, if your bike has ABS, there's a little bit more to it. Yeah, so that's it, guys. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.